On September 13th, 2021, 13-year-old Lauryn Licari was sitting in her bedroom in Beal City, Michigan, when her phone started buzzing. Then it buzzed again and again. By the end of that day, she'd received over 40 text messages from unknown numbers. The messages weren't just mean. They were vicious, sexually explicit, and eerily personal. They called her by her nickname, Lo. They referenced private conversations she'd had in class. They told her she was ugly, that her boyfriend didn't really love her, and that she should kill herself. Lauryn had no idea who was sending them. But here's what made it even worse. The person tormenting her wasn't some anonymous stranger on the internet. It wasn't a jealous classmate or an online predator. It was someone who'd kissed her goodnight every evening for 13 years. Someone who was supposed to protect her from the world. Keep that detail in mind, because when investigators finally traced those messages, the truth would shatter an entire community. But before we get into today's story, if you love disturbing mysteries and bizarre true crime cases told through detailed, immersive storytelling, then you're in exactly the right place, because that's what I specialize in, and I upload new stories 3 to 4 times every week. So if that interests you, please send your mom a suspicious text from an unknown number accusing her of cyberbullying, then act shocked when she actually did it. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future uploads. All right, let's get into today's story, which takes place in Beal City, Michigan, starting in October of 2020. Beal City is the kind of place where everybody knows everybody. With a population of just over 300 people, it's a tight-knit farming community in central Michigan, where high school football games are the biggest event of the week and families have lived for generations. Lauryn Licari grew up here. She was a popular 8th grader in the fall of 2020, athletic and outgoing, with long blonde hair and a bright smile. She'd been dating Owen McKenny for about a year. Owen was a year older, a sweet kid who played football and ran track. Their relationship was the innocent kind of young love that small-town families adore. They'd go to each other's games, hang out with their families, and text constantly like all teenagers do. Lauryn's mother, Kendra Licari, seemed to absolutely love Owen. She worked in IT at Ferris State University and also coached the girls' basketball team at Beal City High School. She'd volunteer to coach Owen's track team. She'd invite him over for dinner constantly. She'd cut his steak into bite-sized pieces for him at the table. She referred to herself as his second mom, and during the pandemic, the two families became even closer, forming a pandemic bubble and spending nearly all their time together. On the surface, Kendra appeared to be the perfect mother. Involved, caring, always checking on Lauryn and her friends. Nobody had any reason to suspect anything was wrong. But then, in October 2020, something strange happened. Lauryn and Owen both received a group text from an unknown number. The message was direct and bizarre. It said Owen was breaking up with Lauryn. It said he didn't like her anymore, and that it was obvious he wanted this other person instead. Lauryn and Owen were confused. Owen hadn't said anything about breaking up. They assumed it was just someone playing a prank. Maybe another student at their small school trying to stir up drama. A few more weird messages trickled in over the next couple weeks, but then they stopped completely. The couple shrugged it off and moved on with their lives. Months passed without incident. Then, on September 13th, 2021, the messages started again. But this time, everything was different. This time, the harassment was relentless and brutal. Lauryn and Owen would wake up to dozens of texts. They'd check their phones during class and find 40, sometimes 50 new messages waiting for them. The texts came from different numbers with different area codes, making it impossible to block them all. And the content of these messages was deeply disturbing. They were sexually explicit, describing graphic scenarios involving the underage couple. They attacked Lauryn's appearance, calling her ugly and fat. They told her that Owen was cheating on her, that everyone at school hated her, that she should hurt herself. Some messages even told her directly to kill herself. What made it even more unsettling was how personal the information was. The sender knew Lauryn's nickname, Lo, which only close friends and family used. They referenced specific conversations that had happened in their classrooms. They knew details about Owen's sports schedule and Lauryn's daily routines. This wasn't some random internet troll. This was someone who knew them intimately. The psychological impact was immediate and severe. Lauryn, who'd always been confident and social, started withdrawing. She'd check her phone obsessively, dreading what new horror would be waiting for her. She stopped hanging out with friends as much. She questioned everything about herself. Owen was equally traumatized, and the stress began affecting their relationship. The two teenagers felt hunted, terrorized by an invisible enemy who seemed to know their every move. Their parents were frantic. Owen's mother, Jill McKenny, and Kendra Licari started documenting everything, printing out pages and pages of the threatening texts to show authorities. They reported the harassment to Beal City High School, and school officials immediately referred the case to local law enforcement in January 2022. Isabella County Sheriff Mike Main took over the investigation, and he was deeply troubled by what he saw. These weren't ordinary cyberbullying messages. They were calculated, persistent, and showed intimate knowledge of the victims' lives. Sheriff Main's initial theory was that it had to be someone at the school. Another student, perhaps someone with a crush on Owen, or someone jealous of Lauryn's popularity. His team began interrogating classmates, pulling kids out of class for questioning. Suspicion fell heavily on a girl named Chloe, one of Owen's close friends. Investigators found that some private messages between Chloe and Owen were somehow appearing in the harassment texts, as if the stalker had access to their conversations. Chloe maintained her innocence, but friendships fractured. The small school community was being torn apart by suspicion and accusations. Students stopped trusting each other. Parents pointed fingers. And still, the messages kept coming. By April 2022, Sheriff Main hit a wall. Despite months of investigation, he couldn't identify the culprit. That's when he called in Bradley Peter, a police officer from nearby Bay City who served as an FBI liaison for cybercrimes. Peter approached the case with fresh eyes and sophisticated technology. He discovered that many of the texts were being sent through Pinger, an app that allows users to disguise their real phone numbers by generating fake ones. This explained why the messages came from so many different numbers. Peter submitted a search warrant to Pinger, and the company provided him with IP addresses associated with the fake numbers. Those IP addresses belonged to Verizon. Peter submitted another warrant to Verizon, requesting information about which phone numbers were connected to those IP addresses. And that's when everything changed. One phone number kept appearing again and again, linked to the IP address every single time a threatening message was sent. Peter ran the number through his database. His stomach dropped when he saw whose name came up. It was Kendra Licari, Lauryn's mother, the woman who'd been showing up at the sheriff's office weekly, demanding updates on the investigation, the concerned parent who'd been printing out evidence and pushing law enforcement to work harder. She'd been the stalker the entire time. On December 12, 2022, Sheriff Main drove to the Licari home with a search warrant His body camera captured what happened next, and the footage is absolutely chilling. When Maine told Kendra they'd traced the messages to her, she barely even tried to deny it. She admitted everything almost immediately, though she claimed she hadn't sent the very first batch of messages in October 2020. She said she'd only started in September 2021, that she was trying to catch whoever had originally harassed her daughter. According to Kendra, she'd sent those messages hoping the real stalker would respond and reveal themselves. But then, she said, she got caught up in it. She kept going. For 15 months, she terrorized her own child. When Kendra confessed, she asked if the matter could be kept quiet. She was worried about how Lauren's classmates would treat her if they found out. But there was no keeping this quiet. The revelation destroyed what was left of the Licari family. Sean, Lauren's father, had been completely in the dark. He'd just discovered that Kendra had also been lying about her job. She'd told him she quit her position at Ferris State University, but she'd actually been fired nearly a year earlier and had been secretly unemployed, spending her days at home sending these messages. The couple had moved 4 times because they thought a stalker was targeting their daughter, never knowing that stalker lived under their own roof. Sean filed for divorce and won full custody of Lauren. In April 2023, Kendra pleaded guilty to 2 counts of stalking a minor and was sentenced to 19 months to 5 years in prison. At her sentencing, Judge Mark Duthie said the case showed him the worst of human nature. Kendra cried in court, saying she never meant to hurt anyone. Psychologists who studied the case suggested she might have suffered from a cyber version of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a disorder where a caregiver harms someone in their care to keep them dependent and close. Kendra herself claimed she'd been trying to protect Lauren because of trauma from her own past, specifically a sexual assault when she was 17. She said watching her daughter become a teenager triggered those memories and made her desperate to control Lauren's life. Kendra Licari was released on parole in August 2024 after serving just over a year. She's now living somewhere in Michigan under strict parole conditions until February 2026. She's divorced, unemployed, and forbidden from seeing her daughter. Lauren, who's now 18, graduated from Beal City High School this year. She told documentary filmmakers that she wants to see her mother again someday, when the time is right, but that she doesn't think she can trust her. Owen also graduated and was even named Senior Homecoming King. He and Lauren no longer speak. The Netflix documentary about the case, Unknown Number, premiered in September 2025 and immediately went viral, reaching #1 on the platform. People around the world were stunned by the story. How could a mother do this to her own child? What drives someone to inflict such psychological torture on the person they're supposed to love most? Even after watching Kendra's interviews and hearing her explanations, those questions still don't have satisfying answers. The case of Kendra Licari stands as one of the most disturbing examples of parental betrayal in recent memory. It shows how technology can be weaponized even by those closest to us, and how the person you trust most can sometimes be the one causing you the most harm. Lauryn Licari survived her mother's cruel campaign, but the scars from those 15 months will likely last a lifetime. So that's gonna do it. Until next time, see ya.